Dan Fantasia isn't just a top sales recruiter. He's built what Forbes calls the best company in the country at it. His company Treeline has helped thousands of companies find the right sales talent. And along the way, he's seen that change drastically over the years. So we'll talk about how the talent has changed, how the sales approach has changed. And we'll also talk about how pivot points have become more important in his business than common growth stages. It's a fascinating discussion. I'm Bryon Morrison. Let's get to the leaders list.
Everything is happening through these screens.
How are we getting the most out of that person?
I want to see this thing grow long term.
Amazing story. You have such a unique perspective on that.
Schedule a 2-week vacation.
I applaud those models.
Undervalue.
Secure your digital footprint as well.
Why were they even put in place in the first place?
Only the most adaptable survive. Let's get to the leaders list. Dan Fantasia of Treeline, welcome to the leaders list.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is a pleasure.
I love it. I love having, one of our New Englanders after the Super Bowl. He gets to come and feel a little happy and a little sad and share all of his emotions here on the show.
Yeah, all of them.
It's a complicated story. I get it. Hey, Dan, we are thrilled to have you on here because, one of the top guys in recruiting and helping companies understand talent for like 25 years. You've built an incredible organization. And so we're thrilled to kind of talk to you about where Treeline is today, what's on your leaders list, and then get your perspective on what we should be thinking about as we're running our companies. But let's kick off with, you just tell us a little bit about your personal journey and how you ended up in this famous position you're in today.
Yeah, so it's a long story that I'll keep it short as I can. So when I graduated college, my friend and I, we built some beds in the back of an old van, and we headed out to Wyoming. I lived in Jackson Hole, Wyoming as a ski bum. I worked for Jackson Hole Ski Corps, and partially because of that experience in my life, that's kind of where we came up with the name Treeline. When I came home, of course, I was looking for my next opportunity. I started at a CAD CAM operation and quickly became a sales representative and then the general manager. But after a few years, I realized there was just really no next step for me. So I went to a recruiting firm looking for an opportunity. And as I was interviewing at different companies, they said to me, "What about working here?" And at the time, I was like, "What? I don't even know what recruiting is." You know what? Most people still don't know what recruiting is. So I learned more about the company and the opportunity, and I said, "You know what? This is for me." Now, at the time, it was 100% commission. My parents and family thought I was crazy. My friends were like, "What are you doing?" Even I had no idea. I was still early in my career. So I joined that company, and I was pitiful. I just was not good at recruiting. The first 6 months, I was the lowest performer in the company. And I remember my CEO saying to me, "What are you doing?" And
how have you managed to be this bad, Dan?
Yeah, what are you doing? Anyway, the next year I became the number 3 rep. The following year I became the number 1 rep, youngest managing partner. Had a significant amount of success, and it was a great run.
What changed that? Like, how'd you go from god awful bad to number 3, 2, 1 and leader? Was there a fundamental shift, or you got over being young?
No, it was a fundamental shift. So first off, it wasn't my work ethic. I was always the first one there and the last one to leave. I worked really hard, but I was weak in leadership. What I mean by that is when I met with a person, they would tell me exactly what they did and what they want to do, and they would tell me how awesome they are, and then I would try to find them an opportunity that was unrealistic for their ability. And so I couldn't take leadership. I couldn't give them career advice. I wasn't strong at helping them understand where they stood in the market and what it was going to take to get to that next level. And so as a result, I didn't do well because all of my candidates were being turned down at opportunities because they really weren't qualified for them. And so once I learned how to take leadership and really understand a person's background and give them guidance on how to be better and how to be more effective in their job search, then I became much more effective. And then once I became more effective, I had the bug, and I worked really hard to help my the individuals I represent, advance their careers. And so
That's awesome.
it was a great
Yeah,
success.
and
Awesome.
I think that's really important because those are pivotal changes, right? Where you start to recognize, oh, this is who I am, this is what I have in me, and what I'm capable of. So that's great. That's from the early days. How did that become Treeline?
Yeah. So I left that organization. Just a lot of things were breaking. Even though I was still the number one producer and account manager and managing partner, I left to start Treeline. And the CEO there is a good friend of mine. This is awesome. He wished me the best of luck. Well, first he tried to keep me. When he realized I wasn't going to stay, he wished me the best of luck and really was super supportive. When I started Treeline, I had a 1-year non-compete, which I actually honored for 3-4 years, a long time. So I honored the non-compete. I knew what I signed up for. I told all the other managing partners and the CEO I wouldn't compete. And I started Treeline. I started Treeline to build a corporation around culture, environment, the individuals that we represent. And by doing that, doing the right thing, which is one of our core values, we built an incredible brand. We've helped thousands of people find new opportunities. We've advanced their careers. They are still part of our network and community, and they support us and root for us. And as a result, we have now access, after 25 years, to really solid, talented, top producing sales professionals that others just can't get in touch with. They haven't done the right thing. They haven't taken the time to make sure that the candidates and the clients find a good match. And when you do that, even though it might be slower, it's better. They recommend you, they refer you, they use you again and again and again. And while it takes a long time to build that network, after 25 years, it is really proven to be one of our greatest strengths.
Yeah. Business becomes easier when you do it right.
After 5 years, the first 5 years, I was like, I think we got this. We're beasts. We're killing it. And it's really taken like 20 plus years to really build that loyalty and that brand and the brand awareness and the constant success. Oh, we have a 97% success rate. So it's the constant success. It's not successful once. It's not twice. It's consistently over and over and over again. And that is really kind of taking us to the top.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the growth stage that Treeline is in today.
I wouldn't say it's a growth stage. I'd say it's a pivot stage. In all honesty, I think we've been over 25 years. We've been great at pivoting and moving and changing with the times. I think right now it's a pivotal change for us as an organization. And maybe most people don't want to admit that, but it is. So what we have done is we've built some really cool technology tools. We have an AI matching tool. We have our own, we call it a talent tracking system. We have software that lets our clients have a 3D view into who the candidates are. So when a candidate comes to us, we can represent them 3-dimensionally, so they get more attention, right? Candidates that work with us have so much more attention with our clients because our clients use the software. They love the software. They see the people more clearly. They save time. The candidates save time. And as a result, we get to put really strong candidates in front of really strong companies. So we're constantly pivoting with AI, with the team, with the direction we're going in and what we're doing. And the reason why we've had to pivot is because the first half of last year was very strong. We were looking to grow at 25%. The second half of last year, the job market really just tanked. We saw it pick up in November. We saw it pick up in December and again in January. But through those times, we're constantly innovating, constantly changing, trying constantly to make the job easier and more efficient for our recruiters, and also to give our clients a streamlined approach to find the exact fit they need for their organizations.
Love it. So it's interesting because a lot of companies talk about those, what you're referring to as pivots, as growth stages. But I think you're right. Like these are what you're talking about right now is almost becoming a product company. And that's a very different mindset. So take me through, you've been around for 25 years. What were some of those big pivots, just so that we can see how you identify change and what you've done in your past?
So, well, we're constantly trying to figure out what's broken, what doesn't work, where we can be more effective. I would say the biggest change for us, the first big change for me in my career. So we started in 2001, but the Great Recession was brutal. That was, talk about pivoting and changing and moving, and that was a crazy time. So we were trying to figure out how to be better. We started building our software then, right? So we call it the TTS system, but we started building that way back in 2008. And we started building to be more efficient, more effective. And we also started to build it because our clients had different needs, and we understood what they wanted to see in candidates and how they wanted to see candidates presented. And so as we started to build that, the market started to change. We obviously started to see tremendous growth. And I would say that our growth as a company over 25 years has been growth with a little step back. So we've had peaks and then small valleys, and then peaks and small valleys, and then peaks and small valleys. So that's how we continue to grow our organization. So that was the first real big change for us.
That's a big pivot. And there was a ton of ATSs out there, right? I mean, applicant tracking systems out there.
Yes.
Why did you build your own? Because this is usually every entrepreneur at one time or another that runs a services firm says, I'm going to build a tool.
Yep.
But why did you do that instead of leveraging one of the existing ATSs?
So we still use an ATS system,
Okay.
but it doesn't display what we need. So we specialize in sales. So we're looking for top producers. There's a lot of things we want to display to our clients, including quota, average deal size, sales cycle, think audience they're selling to, things of that nature. We couldn't display that. So our system displays their sales statistics, their LinkedIn profile, their resume, their compensation expectations, right? What they want for compensation. So all of the information that's important, they get a recruiter note as to why we are introducing them to our client, why it's so important, what their interview availability is, the ability to track notes and all kinds of things. But it's much simpler than an ATS system, and it's the only people we introduce to our clients are candidates that meet their exact needs and that are interested in their opportunity. They've done research on the website, the job description. They know everything about the opportunity and are looking forward to moving to the next step.
Okay. Interesting. So 2008, that was a big pivotal change, and you started developing software. Give me another example of a major pivot.
COVID. I remember when we were first introduced to COVID, it was Monday. We went into the office and we said to the team, we a young team, we're like, we are not going to be affected by this at all. This won't even touch us. We're fine. By Friday, we said, maybe everyone should take their computers home. We never went back. The following was like, over. The only difference is in 2008, I had doubled the size of our space. We had 100 cubes. We had a really big, high volume kind of organization and a lot of space. When COVID hit, we were renegotiating our lease for another, would have been between 3 and 5 years. And we had just lucked out. COVID hit, we left. We actually didn't sign a lease, and instead, we figured out how to become a 100% virtual organization. And so that might sound easy, and I know a lot of companies did it, but that was tough. I mean, we figured out that not everyone is good at a virtual environment. Number one, some people like it, some people don't, and some people aren't good at it. The people that didn't like it and weren't good at it, we had to, find a way to, basically stop employment. And we had to find team members that were really good at it. And that's when we started hiring across the United States. And here we are today.
Yeah. And so had you worked regionally before? Was Treeline mostly focused in Boston area, or had you started to already work nationally and then that just exasperated it?
That's a great question. I would say we were primarily East Coast.
Yeah.
But COVID really put us on the national spotlight pretty quickly.
That is a huge pivot. So just like you were talking about, so that's going from regional, lay hands, I know the individual, and then that probably is a relationship from another person I know. Whereas when you start going nationally, Treeline has to become a national brand, or you have to start thinking about how to regionalize it in other areas, et cetera. So when you went through that process, was that methodical? Did you bring in the marketing team? Did you have that approach, or was it, we're just going to work through this and we're going to see how it happens, and it was more opportunistic?
Like we really started to study our ICP, and we were trying to figure out where our greatest market share was. And then we started, believe it or not, we ended up winning the national market, but we started targeting regions and cities. Right. And we stayed away from some that we just weren't that strong in. I can admit right now, New York is a really tough region. We struggle in New York. It's mostly because companies are not prepared for the compensation discrepancy in New York or San Fran in New York as they are for the rest of the United States. So when you tell them what they need to pay in New York, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to believe it. But that becomes a challenge for us when they can't compete financially.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you looked at the ICP, you looked at what clients you were successful with, and then you replicated that from a TAM, SAM, SUM model, right? You get to who is service obtainable, and I can do this tomorrow, and you replicate lookalikes.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Good.
Yeah. And now we're facing, AI. So we built an AI tool, as I mentioned. So when you look at it, so 2008, we built technology because the world just we needed it. Then we went virtual, changed our business model completely. And with AI, now we've built an AI tool, which the team's using it right now. It's super effective. So it's going to go live, I'd say, by the end of this month. And
awesome. Congratulations.
Free, cool tool for folks to use to find really talented individuals.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Okay. So you're in current pivot, 3, 4, or 5, whatever that might be. But this is a big shift in time for sure. Like organizations are thinking about talent differently, how they find it, how do they prioritize it? How are you dealing with the AI push of, find efficiencies, cut staff, let's, move quicker? From a sales perspective, there's a whole bunch of people who are coming in with systems that you don't need the individuals like you did before. And I'm curious how that's affecting your business and if you're seeing any impact from that.
It's not hurting it.
Okay, good.
So what most this is going to date me. There was a time when there was something called the Big Help. It was when every Sunday, print, newspapers would print every job that was available, and that's how people would advertise for jobs. And then Monster came out and they said recruiting firms are going to be dead. And then that didn't happen. Then Indeed came out, which was a aggregate of all kinds of jobs, and they said, recruiting firms are dead. That wasn't the case. Then LinkedIn came, and no need for recruiters, but there is, and now there's AI. See, the big challenge and the reason why companies need us is the access to the talent is still very hard to achieve, and you need to talk to people. You can't look at a resume, especially in sales, and think, okay, this person's going to be perfect. You need to talk to them. There are so many variables to everyone's background, what they're doing, what they're looking for, what they want. Maybe right now they are in a situation where they're killing it, but they're traveling too much and they don't see their family. And a company wants to hire them, one of their competitors, and wants to give them the same travel, but that's not what they're looking for. Or maybe their success is because they were the first sales rep on board and they keep acquiring companies, but maybe they aren't as successful as you might think. Maybe the second producer is the best producer because they've worked to find every single one of their clients. They built their book of business, and they can explain how they did it and what they did to be so successful in an organization. So regardless of a resume, we need to talk to every single person, which is a tremendous human capital expenditure. And so it takes us a lot of hours and hours and hours to make sure we talk to and vet all of these individuals to understand what they want to do, what a good next step for them is in their career, so that we can educate them when that opportunity arises. We can reach out and tell them about it. But we don't
It
want
does
to be
make sense, right?
yeah,
It's a highly personal process. I mean,
yeah,
like, if this is my future, this is my career, I'm going to pay, somebody's got to talk to me. But
yes,
those systems are enabling that more, right?
yeah.
And that's why you're building those tools. And
Well, what's happening? I mean, so AI is being used by clients and candidates.
Mhm.
It's being used to write resumes. It's used to write resumes that meet the requirement of a job description. So I think what we're finding is that companies are still overwhelmed. If they don't have the manpower to interview the candidates, they will not hire based on just a resume. And so most of the time, if they don't have those resources and they struggle to hire, they will come to us. That's number one. Number two, when they reach out to the market for a top salesperson, that top salesperson isn't necessarily looking for their next opportunity, and they're not taking risks. The market is super volatile. So if your recruiters do have an outreach plan, they're probably getting a lot of rejection because a lot of candidates aren't necessarily considering options because they want security more than they want risk right now. So it's harder to move people.
it's a lot of wait and see, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. If you're doing
That
well as a
makes
top
sense.
performer, why leave? And if your recruiter's not confident enough to get that person excited, then you'll lose that candidate, and that's why you'll use services like ours.
Got it. So, okay, so we get that you're in a pivotal stage. We know that this is a volatile market. Meanwhile, the things that impress me about you and Treeline is you're recognized by Forbes as, best recruiting firm in the US and top sales recruiting firm in the nation. And when I hear things like that, I go, wow, either fantastic PR or you're really doing the work. So, what's on your leaders list today in terms of how are you enabling that and those kind of results? Because the results are just the byproduct of the work that you do. So, like, what's on your leaders list and what are you focused on right now?
Yeah, one of the things on our leader list and that we're focused on right now is winning AI. And so what I mean by that is when you search on top sales recruiting firms in the United States on ChatGPT or on a Gemini, we want to make sure that Treeline Inc. comes up. So if you're in a company right now and you're spending all of your time on traditional marketing and SEO, that's great. But how are you going to win ChatGPT and Gemini so that when people search, you're found? So that's one of our that's one of the major things on our leader list.
Primary marketing initiative was how do you start to get AI to recognize? Because most individuals are starting to move from a Google search to an AI search.
That's right. Now
So,
we've been doing
so
this for
like,
about a year. So a lot of,
okay.
if you're just, it's never too late, but you are behind if you're not doing that now.
Yep. And I'm just curious about your work processes, right? Did you bring in somebody? Did you turn somebody internally into an expert? How do you pick off something like that and go, I'm going to make sure that I win?
The way we do it, or the way we make sure we're going to win, is by we bring in another firm. We have
Yeah.
had our
Specialist.
share of marketing individuals who are all super talented, but one was awesome at content, but not awesome at SEO and website. The next person was awesome at SEO and website, but wasn't great at content. There's so many skills needed to be strong in marketing that I find, and I might be wrong in this, I find that one person in a company just can't handle all of those tasks, or it doesn't have all those skills, but an agency tends to. And so what we found is that a marketing agency is a better fit for us than trying to do it on our own.
It's great. It's great. That makes a ton of sense. And good counsel for everybody. Because you're right. I mean, it's different when you're going from like that operating stage where you're still the top salesperson and you're involved in everything. And then you start getting into this leading stage where you recognize that you've got to let experts be experts. And, we run into this all the time with organizations who are like, no, I'm just going to build this out. And it's like, okay, but the stages are very different when you're at 25 employees versus 250 employees. When you're at 250 employees, you're starting to, build some foundational muscle and consistency. So it makes sense to start to build out some of that talent. But when you are smaller than that, you really do have to have multiple talent, different skills, and they change drastically as the organization scales.
Yeah. I mean, we've tried it, and we've tried it every different way, but outsourced is better for us. It really is.
So you've said we in almost every answer, and so that's interesting to me. And I'm curious, and you've been around for a long time, what's your leadership team look like? How do you bring the right people together to facilitate beyond your own skills?
Yeah, I think one of the most challenging parts of this journey has been my ability to let go and find time to work on the company instead of in the company. And that's a big pivot point for every CEO. Really tough, really hard to do. We have a scaling up coach. His name is Herb Cagliano, and I really needed that in my life. We started using him probably 7 years ago or so. But I needed that in my life to let go quite a bit. And so one of the main philosophies is having an operating committee. We call it our OC. And it's critical to have, an operating committee that is all on the same page. As a company, we have daily huddles and meetings. And as an operating committee, we're meeting, once a week. And we're constantly talking about the business and change and, where we need to go. We're also talking about accountability. Everyone, owns their own, business unit, and they're really responsible for the growth of that business unit and making sure that things get done and accomplished and are held accountable. As the CEO, many times you try to hold on to all of it until you realize the reason why you hired this executive team is so that they can help you, handle and grow the company.
Yeah.
So
awesome. Is there a specific operating system that you guys use in terms of rhythms of meeting and how, or like? Yeah,
we so in the scaling up methodology, I think I have the book someplace buried somewhere around here. Here it is right here. In the scaling up methodology, we use a software application called Align, and Align helps with the rhythm and the metrics and the accountability. And, the OC can see that at any given time. You can see red, you can see everything, red, green. If you're hitting your goals, you're green. If you're not, you're red. If you're in between, you're yellow. So we're always talking about this in our, our daily and weekly meetings to make sure that the company's on track and we're heading in the right direction.
I love it. Yeah, we'll often implement some sort of an operating system, but having that visibility and a tool that you can use that communicates that to everybody and allows them to start to take ownership of it and think about it differently. That's a great next step.
Yeah, it works very well.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So Dan, we've just gone through, listened to your story. That was super helpful. We've understood how you've seen pivot opportunities and changed. Now, what would you recommend with what you see happening in the talent world and what you see happening in the industry? What would you say that our listeners should have on their leaders list? What should they be thinking about right now?
Yeah, I think when you're assessing your organization, and no, this is coming from a biased standpoint because we're specialists and experts in building top producing sales organizations. Yeah. I think with the volatility we're seeing in today's market, if your sales team is not producing the results you expect, what is your plan and strategy? Right? If your sales team if you're not hitting your numbers, are you just cracking the whip, or is there a strategy to top grade? Is there an understanding of accountability? what is happening in the organization so that you can hit your numbers and quotas and goals. Because I will tell you that we are hiring aggressively for many companies that are on track and are in growth mode. So the question you want to ask yourself is my sales team cutting it? And if not, what is your plan to change that?
Yeah. And hope is not a plan.
Hope's not a strategy. Nope.
Yeah. Hope is
No,
not a
it's not.
strategy. Right.
Hope's not a strategy.
So, and as we're doing that, we're examining the sales process. Dan, I can only imagine that you've got a lot of insights about that. I know you don't work from a consulting perspective as much, but is that something that you welcome those calls and you go, good, I get to get in on the early stage, or you look at them and go, this is going to make my life much harder. I just would love it if you'd figure it out and then call me back.
No, I would say free consulting advice is something that we're doing all the time.
Yeah.
Many times companies calling to find out they're having a challenge. They're in a challenging situation. They call us for advice, and then sometimes we give them advice and say, "Are you sure you need to hire? Maybe you should try these few things, and then if it doesn't work, get back to us." Or maybe they have some obvious. A lot of times, it's an obvious challenge. We've seen so many companies and so many growth companies. So as soon as within 5 minutes of you telling what's happening, based on the millions of different models that we've seen, you can already almost tell them what the real issue is. But sometimes emotionally, you're held back from an emotional connection to your current sales organization that is holding you back from change and growth. And that sometimes is more fearful than a team that's producing low numbers. Sometimes it's you're more scared of having to make a tough decision on your current sales team than you are to miss your number. So until you get to that point, you can get stuck, and
it's how much pain are you willing to accept, right?
Yeah. But if you're feeling that kind of pain, you're not hitting your numbers, and it's because you're emotionally attached to your current team. I hate to say this. I don't want to sound cold. That's not my point. Sometimes you just need change.
Yeah. And sometimes outside perspective too. I mean, that's a hard part, right? You can become more and more insular as you become more and more connected, and the relationships become stronger. So.
Yeah, and there's a million things that are going on in different organizations. Sometimes your compensation plans are driving behaviors that are not encouraging what outcomes you need. And so as a result, your team's not producing, not because of the team, it's because of you. Or maybe it is onboarding. You have no onboarding. You think you can just hire a salesperson, they're a top producer, and they'll be a top producer at your company. And it's not how it works. They need time, effort, coaching, leadership, KPIs. Like everyone needs these. So if you're looking,
and they need an infrastructure too, right? The company has to do their part. That's what, when we talk about, functional maturity.
Yeah.
A lot of times we will talk to companies about, how far are you in the spectrum of sales as a function, and how mature is it, and how much is the organization supporting that? And when we go through that process with clients, and we, they look at the stage, and then they look at how good they are at each one of those stages. And it is fascinating to hear, a manager's perspective versus a practitioner's perspective. And so it's having that dialogue and being able to talk about, am I doing my part? Or are you doing your part? That's an equal exchange.
Yeah, we call that functional accountability, and we focus to make sure that the OC is accountable for that function. And many times companies just need, like you said, an outside perspective to talk through their current organization and what needs to change. Sometimes nothing has to change except for something from the top or the executive team or support. And sometimes you might need a different salesperson or different salespeople on the team.
Yeah. Dan, I'm going to go back because I should have asked you this earlier, but I'm really curious about after this many years specifically focusing on sales. Let's talk about the generational aspect. How has sales changed and how has the talent changed in your career?
Yeah. Wow.
It's
I
a minor
mean,
question. Easy.
yeah, it's a
And
big
not
one.
loaded at all. That's
It's changed a lot. I mean, there was a time. So there was a time where we could hire entry level candidates, and they would move up the ladders. Over the past 5 years, 5 years ago there was a big something called BDR or SDR push. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those terms, but business development rep, sales development rep. We did a humongous push on that. That would get people involved in sales. It would teach them the basics, and then it would give them the foundation to become mid-market account execs, senior account execs, enterprise account execs, so on and so forth, right up the ladder to VP and CRO. Over the past few years, what we've seen is that BDR, SDR function is not as common or needed. And so now we're seeing a bigger gap. So you have a lot of college kids getting out of school, and we're missing that entry-level role because there is not the need for it we once had. And that is because of automation and AI and all kinds of other things. These tools can do an entry-level sales representative's role. So what I'm wondering is, we still need a foundation. We still need salespeople, but we need a foundation for these sales representatives to get started, to learn if they want to be in sales and like sales and want to stay in sales. And then how do we continue to coach them up so they become the future enterprise account executives and VPs and CROs of the future?
Yeah, I remember a long time ago actually seeing a stat where hiring managers were saying that, it was a very high percentage would rather invest in AI than hire college graduates.
Yep.
And I understood it. I understand the change and the requirement of understanding AI and using it to its fullest ability. But I felt the exact same way. I thought this is going to create a gap,
Yeah.
a noticeable gap in organizations and understanding and having a team ready to roll and be successful, because there is just a natural maturation process for sales, right?
Yep. That's exactly right.
So
I
the
think you'll
people,
see
does
that.
that mean companies are looking at hiring, like they go sooner to, hey, bring in talent that's already been trained outside? And like, how are
Most of
companies responding to that?
Yeah, so there are still companies hiring SDRs and BDRs and things of that nature,
Sure.
but just not at the volume that we once saw. So it still happens, but it's not nearly as much as it was. Right now, what most of our clients are looking for, almost every search we have is a difficult search. That's why they come to us. They need a specific individual, specific requirement, selling to a specific audience, 5 to 7 years of experience. And that's what they want. Our companies are looking for talent that they just can't find on their own. And so we have a lot of searches right now. We have a tremendous amount of opportunity, but it's all very selective. So most of our clients get somewhere between 6 and 10 individuals to make it one hire, somewhere in that range. But to get to that 6 or 10, it might take us 300 to 400. It might take us reaching out to 300 to 400 people and getting rejected. No's, could be 500, could be more. It all depends on the search and how difficult it is and how competitive the compensation range is and how dynamic the organization is and their technology. But so right now, yes, we are not looking at that 1 to 2, 3 year player. We're looking to that 5 to 10, 12, 15 year person.
Super interesting to me just to think about the fact that, Salesforce, SaaS, predictable revenue, like that set up the whole SDR, BDR concept. But what it really did was kind of gave a structure for being able to grow sales and teams. And so I think that's super interesting for people just to let that soak in a little bit and consider that, because as you start to scale, you do have to build those kinds of consistent processes in place. And so even if you're not a SaaS company and you're not using predictable revenue strategies, you still have you have to have that kind of same systems mindset to be able to grow talent.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I mean, many times companies would come to us because they don't have a bench, because they don't have people that they can promote. That's why they're looking for a specific individual that can hit the ground running or understands the audience they sell to, right? and they really struggle to do it on their own.
Well, and look, that's why I asked that question, right? How are companies reacting to that? Because they've gone through this process where they pull out that farm team, so to speak, and they aren't growing the talent, so it's really expensive. There's another answer. It is go hire really good talent that's already trained, and somebody else has taken on the time, the effort, the pain. You're just going to pay more for it, right?
That's right. That's exactly right.
That's why we also start seeing some, I would imagine you've seen this with clients where they're just doing acqui-hires, right? They go and they find, 2, 3, 5, groups that work together, or companies. It's easier just to acquire the company and take the sales talent, because that might be something they're really good at.
Yeah. And there's a million different strategies, but sometimes smaller companies they want to recruit their competitors, but after doing market research and going to the market, we find out their competitors they're not going to come to them because the money's not competitive enough, or they know who you are and they don't want to work there. So instead, the next strategy would be, well, let's figure out who your competitor's hiring. What companies do they hire from? Why recruit directly from your competitors? Let's compete with them against the talent that they're bringing in. What industries are they finding to be effective and successful? And then we'll give them a strategy to hire those people, and we'll build out their sales team. So there are so many different ways to look at a search. And a lot of times it's just brainstorming with, it could be with services like ours or professional service organizations like ours. I mean, it costs nothing to consult. So, why not give us a ring?
Why not? Why not make the phone call? Dan, this has been so helpful. We appreciate you being on the leaders list, sharing your story, your counsel. I'm sure all of our listeners are going to get a lot out of it. And it's been great to have you on.
Yeah, Bryon, this has been awesome. I really appreciate the time today.
Okay. Thanks very much.